Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Seagull Reissue reference 816.12.1075. This watch is available from seagullwatchofficial.com for $499 US, which is €444. Seagull have a rich brand heritage. They were founded in 1955 in China, and this year in 2025 they celebrate their 70th anniversary. This piece, the Seagull Reissue reference 816.12.1075, is a heritage reissue made to modern day specifications. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a cardboard watch box, which is protected by this blue cardboard sleeve. On the sleeve we have the Seagull emblem and Seagull text logo in silver. So I remove the cardboard sleeve, and this is the cardboard watch box itself. We have a blue cardboard lid on a blue cardboard base. Now I'm going to be critical of this. This kind of basic cardboard watch box is acceptable in the low tier below the €100 price point, but we are looking at a piece which costs €444, therefore it's at the top end of the low tier. So to clarify, low tier is €0 to €500 price point, €444 is at the top end. One removes the cardboard lid from the cardboard base, and inside we have a foam cutout panel with a ribbon pull. This houses the owner's instruction manual, which I'll show you. And in the base we have a foam cutout, and this is in the shape of a watch, and it does a good job protecting the watch in shipping, so it does suffice. But I think Seagull could do better. They've been making watches in China for 70 years and they're very proud of their heritage. This kind of cardboard watch box is not acceptable at the €444 price point. I would like to see them do better. With regards to items that come with the piece, this is the owner's instruction manual. Now, clear instructions in both Mandarin and on the reverse in English, and it details the brand history, which is a very interesting read since 1955, and also operating instructions for the movement used, which is the Seagull caliber ST2100 automatic. The one thing that's absent are clear, concise diagrams. So the instructions are clear and concise in English and also Mandarin, but we don't have any diagrams. You have to scan QR codes on each of the steps of the instructions. So you can scan the QR code with your Android or iPhone to download the images and the diagrams, but I think it would make more sense if they simply used one QR code to download the owner's instruction manual in full. Alternatively, as an alternative to the QR codes at each step, they should simply have a concise diagram image, and that would match each of the instructions, because what we've got here is neither one thing or the other. We haven't got a QR code, you can just download the manual in one. Alternatively, just the instructions with diagrams, which is the normal format for owner's instruction manuals. But it's good that it's translated into both Mandarin and on the reverse English. On the last page, I'll show you, we have a QR code you can scan. Now this QR code activates the 2-year international warranty, and I want to give due credit to Seagull here, because often low-tier Chinese brands only cover their watches with 12 months international warranty. To get 2 years of international warranty is very good, and they deserve full credit for that. This is the cardboard tag that comes to the watch, and as you can see it says Seagull since 1955, so this year they celebrate their 70th anniversary, and we have the full reference number of the reissue 816.12.1075. On the reverse we have a QR code for the piece and also Seagull in Mandarin. And lastly, one also gets this bracelet resizing tool, which is made from plastic with a stainless steel push pin. This does suffice in removing the push pins from the bracelet and resizing it, and the bracelet uses push pins rather than screw pins. Nice to get this included. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 38mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 49.2mm, a thickness of 12.2mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The bracelet is flared and tapered, so the bracelet is wider at the lugs than the lug width itself. Lug width is 20, bracelet flare is 22.6mm, tapering down to 18mm at the 2-button push butterfly clasp. 2-button push butterfly clasp is signed with high definition engraving with both the Seagull emblem and also Seagull text logo, so it's good to see it's not the cost-cutting measure of a sterile clasp. Nice to see it signed with both the emblem and the logo. 2-button push triggers are mirror polished to a good standard, no sharp edges, no burrs, heavily sprung loaded so they're robust and reliable, and they don't stick too proud from the left and the right hand flanks of the bracelet, and very well proportioned. We have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished baton hands and also the silver mirror polished stick indices. Also, we have a silver sunburst dial which is highly reflective and shiny, so the AR coating does work very well because it reduces the reflection from all three areas: the silver sunburst dial, the silver mirror polished stick indices and the silver mirror polished baton handset. The baton handsets are correctly proportioned. They remind me of Rolex Datejust or alternatively Rolex Oyster Perpetual baton hands, similar proportions. The minute hand is long enough to extend all the way to the black minute ticks on the chapter ring, and the hour hand extends all the way to the stick indices. Also, the second hand is the correct length because it extends all the way to the black minute ticks on the chapter ring, and it's good. They deserve full credit because the proportions of the handset are correct. Often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to undersize the handsets. They look too slender and also too short, but Seagull have got it correct. These baton hands look wide enough and also long enough for the size of the dial and the proportions of the indices. I like to see a minute hand extend all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring, and also the second hand extend all the way to the minute ticks. It's good. The printing on the dial is high definition and crisp. Seagull text logo has a nice fine font. It looks sharp and crisp. It's not too thick and blurry. 3 lines of text are also sharp, high definition and crisp. The legibility is good. I like the fonts used. We have automatic 28 joules made in China. Often low-tier Chinese brands try to hide the fact that the watch is made in China, and also microbrands do this with Chinese-made watches, but Seagull are right to print made in China on the dial because they are very proud of the fact they are one of the first Chinese watch brands from 1955, one of the originals, and of course they're very proud to put made in China on the dial, and I think more Chinese brands should do this because it's something they shouldn't be ashamed of. Seagull are a high-quality Chinese brand and they are proud to be Chinese, so I like it. I think it balances the dial very well. Also like the blue applied Seagull emblem at 12 o'clock above the Seagull text logo, adds interest, and it's mirror polished to a 3D effect, and it complements the stick indices which are also applied. So quality of the printing of the black minute ticks on the chapter ring is good. They're high definition and crisp. We've got Lume dots next to the stick indices, which does give the piece a vintage aesthetic of a 1960s or 1970s piece, and this is a reissue of a 1970s Seagull, so of course it does have the aesthetic with the dots of C3 Superluminova next to the stick indices. Dial layout is good, and I like the silver frame which has a 3D effect around the day-date complication. Now, subjectively I'm going to be critical of the colours used for the day-date complication. I think this would look better if they'd use a black day wheel and black date wheel rather than white and black, because as you can see, what we have here is a black day wheel with white text letters, and then we have a white date wheel with red Arabic numerals. Now the red Arabic numerals do contrast very well. I like them. I think it looks very aesthetically pleasing. But I think this would look better if they used the same colour on the day wheel and the date wheel. So either black and black or white and white, rather than having this mismatch. Also I think it would look better if they just used the same colour for both the letters and also the Arabic numerals, because we've got white letters and we've got red Arabic numerals, and there's a clash. So for design continuity, I think a day-date complication looks better with the same colour, either white or black, and also the Arabic numerals and the letters should be the same colour, either white or red, but not this clash. But this is subjective. Some collectors might like this, and purist Seagull collectors will appreciate this is a reissue, a heritage reissue of a 1970s piece, and Seagull were using different coloured day and date wheels in the 1970s, so it is true to the original. So that's something one has to bear in mind, but I think the modern day specification is better, and it's the convention to have the same coloured day and date complication with the same colour letters and Arabic numerals. But there we are. So flat sapphire crystal works well, the silver sunburst dial looks very aesthetically pleasing, AR coating works well. We have a fluted bezel, which is solid 316L grade stainless steel, and the flutes are mirror polished to perfection. This looks like a solid 18 karat gold white fluted bezel, as used on the Rolex Datejust. There's no discernible difference. Visually, it does look very similar to a Rolex Datejust fluted bezel. In terms of finishing, the flutes are nice and crisp and sharp, and they've deburred and chamfered the top edge of the tips of the flutes, so therefore there's no sharp corners or edges. Nice large mirror polished chamfer to the top edge. The proportions of the flutes are correct. It really does remind me of a 36mm Rolex Datejust. That's the kind of proportions of the bezel. They've got it correct. The bezel doesn't look too tall and too thick, and the flutes are not too coarse. They're nice and fine, and it does give the piece a vintage aesthetic. It looks like a 1970s piece. Case is solid 316L grade stainless steel, and we've got two different finishes on the top of the case and also the front edge of the lugs, the angular profile, which are brutalist design. We've got longitudinal brushed satin finishing, nice fine grained finish with a beautiful luster, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. So we've got a large bevel which runs the top edge of the flank, and that marks the transition. The lower edge of the flank also has this bevel, and I like the two bevels because we've got this nice crisp edge which isn't sharp, but it's been mirror polished to a flawless standard. Same on the crown side, we've got this nice large top bevel and a lower bevel, and we've got this nice line which marks the transition between the top bevel and the lower bevel. Seagull deserve credit here because this is not an homage to a Rolex, Tudor or Omega piece, as so many low-tier Chinese brands do. Visually, it does look like an integrated bracelet piece because of the angular brutalist lugs, but it's not. The bracelet has a 20mm lug width, and it's not integrated, as you can see. It has a standard spring bar. But the case shape itself, although the angular profile does look aesthetically like a 1970s piece, and this is a reissue, the case is unique, and it is an original Seagull design. This isn't an homage piece, it's not an homage of a Rolex, Tudor or Omega. And I like that the flanks aren't just tall slab sides. They've got these bevels, a top bevel and a lower bevel, and this is something unique to Seagull. I haven't seen this double bevel flank used on other pieces. I like the bevel on the top and the bevel on the lower edge, as you can see, and this nice crisp line which runs the full length of the flank. Catches the light beautifully and also has a nice curved profile to it when you look at it sideways. So it's a very nicely finished case. Quality of the mirror polishing is mid-tier level. So to clarify, low tier is €0 to €500 price point, mid-tier is €500 to €5,000 price point. So what we're looking at here is mid-tier case finishing and mid-tier bezel finishing on a low-tier piece costing €444. So let's look at the bracelet in detail. So it does visually look like an integrated bracelet, but it's not. It's a standard 20mm lug width with a standard stainless steel spring bar, and the bracelet end link perfectly matches the angle of the brutalist lugs. So it does have the profiling of an integrated head of the piece, but the benefit is the end link in the bracelet can articulate rather like a female pivoted end link. Now, in terms of articulation, this one articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, so that's good. Doesn't have excess play in any direction, so the tolerances are good, nice friction interference fit. Let's check the other side for continuity. This one feels stiffer, so it doesn't have the same tolerances. The interference fit has more friction around the pin which is pressed through it. And I think they could refine this because it does feel stiff. This one does kink, as you can see. One has to manually manipulate it into position. It doesn't flow freely. This one feels smoother. This one feels better. You don't need to manually manipulate it. It flows as it should be. So they need to refine the tolerances. And bear in mind, they've been making watches since 1955, so after 70 years, they need to be getting it correct. This is inexcusable. We're not looking at a low-tier piece here costing below €100. One can be magnanimous about this kind of build quality, quality control and QC issue at the below €100 price point, but this is at the upper end of the low tier, €444. One can't have this stiff, kinking link on one side, but the other side flows freely, as it should be. Now on a positive note, needless to say, doesn't have excess play because it's a nice tight interference fit, but they need to refine it, so there's room for improvement. With regards to bracelet, it has a beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing, longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the top side and underside, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. Push pins are a cost-cutting measure. Now, subjectively, I'm going to be critical of this because at €444, one expects to see screw pins. I think 1.2mm screw pins would enhance this piece, but however, subjectively, purist Seagull collectors will appreciate the use of push pins as per the original Seagull pieces from the 1970s, and this is a heritage reissue, and the original used push pins in the bracelet rather than screw pins. So one has to weigh that up. It is true to the original pieces from the 1970s. I think they should have upgraded it to modern day specification. For example, this uses sapphire crystal with AR coating. The originals from the 1970s would have used mineral crystal without AR coating. So that's the kind of notable modern day specification upgrade we like to see. And again, I would like to see screw pins used because that is beneficial. But on a positive note, bracelet feels nice and tight. Doesn't have excess play. Now, does articulate freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, flows freely, so it articulates freely. This is good. Doesn't pull arm hairs, feels comfortable, doesn't have a sharp edge on the top edge or the low edge of the flanks on both sides, so this is very good. It's not a sharp bracelet, it's very well finished. Quality of the mirror polishing is absolutely flawless on the flanks. Quality of the brush satin finishing to the top side and the underside has a beautiful luster, and it's absolutely flawless. No imperfections whatsoever. Doesn't feel sloppy, doesn't have excess play, doesn't rattle, articulates freely. So the bracelet is good. It's just a shame that we've got this inconsistency with this one, the end link kinking. It feels too stiff, but on this side they've got it correct. It flows freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't rattle. They just need to refine it to get the tolerances better throughout. So with regards to the 2-button push butterfly clasp, as you can see, signed with the Seagull shield emblem and also Seagull text logo. 2-button push triggers are heavily sprung loaded, and both halves of the butterfly clasp open freely. So quality of the mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flanks is excellent. No sharp edges or no sharp corners to the centre sections, which is good. It's not handed, so you don't have to overlap it. You can close the left or the right hand portion first. It doesn't matter, it doesn't overlap. Now let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play. Inner left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play. Right hand inner hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't have excess play. Finally, right hand hinge pin again articulates freely, doesn't have excess play. This is good. So left hand inner, right hand inner and right hand outer, all 4 hinge pins feel nice and tight, good friction interference fits. This is an example to other low tier Chinese brands of how to get it correct with a 2-button push butterfly clasp. Tolerances are tight. Mirror polishing is absolutely flawless to the top side, underside and flanks. No sharp edges to the undercuts and the edges of the flanks on the top side and the underside. So it's been deburred and chamfered very well. Also very nice attention to detail, because if you look at the underside, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. They've even signed the underside of the butterfly clasp with the Seagull shield emblem, as you can see. So nice attention to detail. Now, the one negative is, unfortunately, they have engraved Seagull upside down. Now, just to clarify why I say it's upside down, the majority of collectors wear their watch on the left wrist, and then they take the watch off like so, rotate it round like so, open the butterfly clasp, both halves. And as you can see, if you look at the right hand portion, stainless steel is now engraved upside down. So they need to invert this. Now, this is an embarrassing mistake. And I have to appreciate the majority of collectors are left-handed and they wear their watches on the left wrist rather than the right wrist. So as I've demonstrated, when you take the watch off and rotate it round like this is the orientation of the clasp. Stainless steel should be inverted. It should be engraved the other way up. This is upside down. One can be magnanimous about these kind of fundamental errors on a low tier piece costing below €100 price point. This is at the top end of the low tier, €0 to €500 price point, €444. You have to have things like this correct. It's a fundamental. Stainless steel needs to be the right way up for the majority of left-handed collectors. So they need to invert this. It's very simple to get it correct, or they could simply rotate this round 180 degrees when they're fitting the 2-button push butterfly clasp to the bracelet, because that would make it the correct way up. It's simply been put into the bracelet upside down. Simple as that. Let's look at the crown. So, solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finished, nice large mirror polish chamfer which deletes the tips of the coin edge teeth. Domed mirror polish cap to it, as you can see, and it's embossed with a Seagull shield emblem to a good standard. Flawless mirror polishing, nice to see an embossed signed crown. I'm pleased to see they haven't used the production cost cutting measure of a sterile unsigned crown, and the embossing of the shield emblem is very good. Proportion is correct. It's partially recessed into the right hand flank, and it doesn't stick too proud from the right hand flank. The proportion is good. It's very grippy and tactile. You can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb, so it looks the right size. So let's test unscrewing it. Silky smooth. This is sublime screw down crown execution. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So feels grippy and tactile. Coin edge teeth do not feel sharp, but they do feel grippy. So when it's unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the Seagull caliber ST2100 automatic, which of course is in-house, made by Seagull in China. Now 40 full clockwise turns is enough to fully manually wind the mainspring to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. So when the mainspring is fully unwound and fully exhausted and the movement has stopped dead, 40 clockwise turns will fully manually wind it to 40 hours. Now in terms of how it feels, the Seagull caliber ST2100 automatic is a clone of the ETA 2836-2. Feels exactly the same as manually winding an ETA 2836-2, which it is a clone of. This has 28 joules. The ETA 2836-2 has 25 joules respectively. So the architecture of both movements is the same, but Seagull add an additional 3 joules to the movement. But other than that, the design, the architecture is the same. Feels exactly the same to manually wind because it's a clone of it. So heavy resistance. Now to put this into perspective, it feels much heavier than manually winding an SW200-1 or an ETA 2824-2. They feel lighter, so it feels much heavier than manually winding a Miyota 9015 or a Miyota 9039 respectively. One can feel the tension. It's got a very heavily sprung-loaded mainspring, so the tension rapidly builds up. When you manually wind it, you've got to get a good grip of the crown with your index finger and thumb and really give it a good turn with a lot of torsion, because it doesn't feel light. It's not like manually winding a Seiko NH35A, which feels light. This feels heavy. So you've really got to give it a good turn, but it feels robust, it feels reliable, it feels solid. I like it. So tension rapidly builds up and it feels very smooth to manually wind, doesn't feel rough or gritty, so it feels pleasant. Putting it out to the first click position is the day-date complication position. So rotating the crown clockwise advances the date complication and it clicks over with a nice positive click. Feels similar to the Seiko NH36 or the 4R36, which is the same. The NH36A is a day-date complication piece, day-date complication movement used in the Seiko 5KX, for example. So it feels very similar to that. The date clicks over rather like an NH35A in terms of solid indexing, nice heavy clicks. Feels heavier than an SW200-1 or an ETA 2824-2, but I like it, feels solid, nice heavy clicks. Rotating the crown anti-clockwise advances the quickset day complication, and this is bilingual. It's both in Mandarin and also English, which is good. So as you can see, we have the 3 letters for the days of the week, and we have the Mandarin characters for the day of the week in Chinese. So good to have both bilingual, and the legibility is good. Large printed letters for the day of the week, and also the font is nice and crisp and sharp. It's not too thick, it's not blurry, and the contrast is very well. The white letters contrast very well with the black day wheel, and also the red Arabic numerals contrast very well with the white date wheel. But I think, as I've detailed, this would look more aesthetically pleasing if they use black and black or white and white, and also the same colour of letters, same colour of Arabic numerals, red and red, rather than having this mismatch. But however, Seagull pieces from the 1970s did use this style of day-date complication with different colours. And as I've detailed, subjectively, some collectors will appreciate this. Purist Seagull collectors will like that this is a true heritage reissue, true to the original pieces they were making from 1955 onwards. So putting it out to second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead. So therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the caliber ST2100 automatic. We're now in the time setting position. Rotating the baton hands feels nice and smooth, both clockwise and anti-clockwise. So there's no discernible difference between how this feels when setting the time than the ETA 2836-2, which it is a clone of. They feel exactly the same. Feels nice and smooth. Light resistance to the gearing, has 28 joules. It's a low friction caliber and minimal backplay. When you rotate the coin edge crown, there's an immediate response to the baton minute hand. You don't have to take up a lot of slack, so it feels nice and tight. In terms of the back play or the slack, it has less back play than an NH35A and also Miyota 8215, which have more back play. Feels nice and tight. Feels more similar to an SW200-1 or an ETA 2824-2. That's the kind of back play. And also feels similar to a Miyota 9015, which also has minimal backplay. I like it. I like that the minute hand for the baton hand is responsive. You don't have to take up a lot of slack. Feels nice and tight. Feels smooth. In terms of the gearing, it does feel heavier than an NH35A. You can feel more friction. And the friction isn't detrimental. It just means the meshing of the gearing is very precise. The gear teeth have been cut very finely and there's good quality control and tolerances. The meshing of the gearing is very close and feels reliable and robust as a result. I like the quality of it. It does feel tight. So one can feel the meshing of the gearing, but it's not detrimental friction. Actually, it just feels very refined. So I like the feeling of it. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the second hand begins to sweep around the dial at the characteristic smooth 4Hz sweep. So this piece runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. This is something I like about it because the 4 Hz sweep is nice and smooth rather than the stutter and judder of a 3 Hz movement running at 21,600 vibrations per hour as per a Seiko NH35A, for example. So let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup. There's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So, build quality, quality control, tolerances and machining are 10 out of 10. Very smooth to unscrew, very smooth to screw it back down. Minimal number of turns required to unscrew it fully. Feels good to manually wind, feels smooth, doesn't feel rough or gritty. Hacking works well, day-date complication works well. Nice positive clicks to the day complication and the date complication respectively. Setting the time feels smooth. But it just feels heavier than an NH35A or NH36A, which is the same as a 4R36 as I've detailed. One has to get accustomed to it. It does have a heavier feeling when manually winding and also more friction when moving the hands to set the time. So it just feels solid but very reliable. Right, so I'll show you the Caseback. So, exhibition Caseback glazed with sapphire crystal. So, sapphire crystal glazing is excellent. Now, good clarity to it, does a good job of displaying the movement. Now, the movement is decorated, as you can see. On the rotor, it's signed in gilt with a Seagull shield emblem and also Seagull text logo. And we've also got milled stripes, which are like Côtes du Genève or Geneva stripes. And on the bridges and the main plate of the movement, it's also decorated with pelage finishing. So, the sapphire crystal in the exhibition Caseback does a good job of displaying the movement, which is very aesthetically pleasing. The stainless steel portion is mirror polished to a flawless standard. The milled slots are deburred and chamfered, so no sharp edges. And around the circumference we have the specification and reference number of the piece engraved with nice fine high definition engraving. What I like about it is it's not a deep profile bubble back Caseback. Now it's not a flat Caseback as per a quartz piece as one would expect. The exhibition Caseback does add some thickness to the piece, but it is still only 12.5mm. So again, this is an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get the proportions of an exhibition Caseback correct. It's not a deep bubble back exhibition Caseback. It does provide adequate clearance around the rotor, which is necessary, but they haven't made the sapphire crystal too thick and they haven't made the stainless steel portion of it too deep. So it's low profile. The benefit of that is the head of the piece sits close to the wrist, doesn't have a large gap on the undercuts to the flanks, and it feels very smooth and comfortable because the sapphire crystal glazing is perfectly smooth and the stainless steel portion of it is mirror polished, no sharp edges to the engraving, the milled slots don't have sharp edges, so it feels very smooth. Comfort level and feel good factor are therefore enhanced. The solid end links use standard stainless steel spring bars. Now, this could be further enhanced with the use of quick release stainless steel spring bars because that would negate the need for a spring bar tool, but however it is acceptable to use standard stainless steel spring bars. The solid end links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece. The underside to the head of the piece is finished to perfection, flawless mirror polishing. No sharp edges to the tips of the lugs, they've been deburred and chamfered very well, and the undercuts to the flanks have nice, sharp, nice crisp edges, but they've been deburred very well, so no sharp edges, doesn't feel sharp and doesn't scratch the wrist. Mirror polishing is mid-tier level to the underside to the head of the piece, so mid-tier is €500 to €5,000, that's the level of finishing to this low-tier piece. So Exhibition Caseback looks good, also feels good, and does a good job of displaying it. They deserve credit because 100 metres is strong specification. Good to see a screw down crown rather than a push-pull crown, and a screw down caseback rather than a pressed on stainless steel caseback as cost-cutting measures. Right, so I'll give you wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report that this does fit my 8-inch wrist with no problems whatsoever. I can easily slide in the index finger beneath the 2-button push butterfly clasp and bracelet at all times, so this indicates the bracelet will fit up to a maximum 8.5-inch wrist size with no difficulties whatsoever. There are enough removable links on the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side of the bracelet to size this down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size up to a maximum 8.5-inch. So I haven't sized it and it's loose on my 8-inch wrist. However, this could be further enhanced with the addition of half links either side of the butterfly clasp. The one negative of this piece, as with many low-tier Chinese brands using butterfly clasp, is the absence of micro adjustment on the clasp. A micro adjustment clasp would be beneficial, for example, with an on-the-fly adjustment, ratcheting mechanism or micro adjustment system, because the problem with butterfly clasp is, due to the symmetrical number of links on the left and the right hand side of it, the 6 and the 12 o'clock side of the bracelet, sometimes adding or subtracting one full link doesn't give the desired fit. The bracelet either feels too tight or too loose. So the best solution to this, the most cost effective, is to add half links either side of the bracelet clasp at the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side. For example, if Seagull used the half link on the 6 and the 12 o'clock side, this would benefit collectors that can't get the correct fit with a full link, because adding or subtracting a half link will centralise the butterfly clasp on the wrist but also give the correct fit. Sometimes a half link is necessary. This only has full links all the way through the bracelet. That's something that could be updated very easily in the absence of a micro adjustment clasp. Now, taper is aggressive. Normally I refer to Perfection Personified taper, which is 20-16, because this is a 38mm, one would expect that. 20mm lug width is correct, but in this case I'm not going to be critical of the aggressive taper because the flared bracelet does blend nicely with the angular brutalist lugs. Does look like a integrated bracelet piece. 22.6 is wide at the head of the piece, but it quickly tapers down to 18 at the 2-button push butterfly clasp. So, as an alternative to a 20-16 taper, which is Perfection Personified, the 22.6 down to 18 does look good. It's pleasantly surprising because although it does have a lot of meat at the head of the piece, it aggressively tapers down to 18 quickly. So the taper reduces rapidly and therefore it doesn't look too thick, doesn't look too bulky. Often low-tier Chinese brands with integrated bracelet pieces, they have a tendency to make the links too wide and also too thick. Problem is this adds too much meat to the bracelet, so the head of the piece feels balanced but the bracelet feels too thick and bulky. This doesn't have that problem. Now, it's not an integrated bracelet piece, but it does visually look similar to one. But the aggressive taper from the angular lugs means that it doesn't look too bulky. There's not too much meat on the bracelet, and of course the butterfly clasp reduces a lot of heft on it. This piece is surprisingly lightweight. It lacks heft. It does look thick, does look bulky, but it's only 38mm and it only weighs 134 grams. Now, you'll know from my previous reviews, anything below 150 grams is the sweet spot because that gives comfort level and feel good factor when wearing the piece for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. So needless to say, it's 134 grams. It's 16 grams below the 150 grams sweet spot for a daily wear piece, which could potentially be worn as a dress piece. The thing I like about this above all else is its low profile. Yes, it's automatic. We're not looking at a quartz powered piece, so one would expect this to be 13mm plus. It does have an exhibition case back, which again adds some thickness, and it's not 50 meters, this is 100 meters. So it needs a thicker sapphire crystal in the front, thicker sapphire crystal in the exhibition case back to provide 100 meters. But this is only 12.5, so it's half a millimeter below the 13mm sweet spot. Anything below 13mm is the sweet spot because this will easily slip underneath your shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So it's practical for a daily wear piece. Feels balanced. Bracelet balances the head of the piece. Doesn't feel top heavy like a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel. They've made the correct decision by using a flat sapphire crystal because often low-tier Chinese brands, when they do homage pieces, which are meant to look like vintage pieces from the 1960s and the 1970s, they have a tendency to use box top hat crystals, which are double domed. They add 2mm of thickness to the piece, and of course often they're powered by the NH35A, which is a thick movement, and what happens is the piece ends up being 13mm plus, and it makes it top heavy. This diminishes the feel good factor and the comfort level, because what you then have is a thick slab sided flank on the case, a deep case to house the NH35A, and a 2mm thick box top hat crystal, so a 13 to 14mm thick piece. This does not have those problems because the flat sapphire crystal is thin. It's low profile. Now it does project above the top of the fluted bezel, but it does look aesthetically pleasing. I like the bevel on the edge of the sapphire crystal, which catches the light, and it looks good. The fluted bezel catches the light, and also the bevel on the sapphire crystal catches the light, but the point is it's flat. The exhibition caseback isn't a deep bubble back caseback, and you can see on the undercuts to the flanks we don't have this large gap. There is a gap beneath the tips of the angular lugs, and also the end link of the bracelet, you can see there's a gap. So I would say to you, this is best suited to collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, because it does have a rather long lug to lug length. The case is 49.2. I think Seagull could have enhanced this if they reduced it to the sweet spot, which is 48. Often referred to 48 as the sweet spot or the perfect lug to lug measurement for all wrist sizes, because 48 lug to lug fits collectors if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. At 49.2 it's 1.2mm too long, so that is okay if you have a 7 to 8 inch plus wrist size, 49.2, but if you have a smaller wrist size of 6 to 7, you may find the ends of the lugs have too much overhang. It looks okay on my 8 inch wrist. The end link does have some gap, and also the tip of the lug does have some gap underneath it, but on wrist, because it's low profile at 12.5, it doesn't stick on top of the wrist too proud. It does look low profile enough, so it's good. But for a 6 to 7 inch wrist, I would say it's too long. 38 does give nice wrist presence, but it's not too large and doesn't dominate the wrist too much, so it is practical for a daily wear piece or a dress piece. I think it's a good looking piece. Feel good factor is good, comfort level is good, does have the vintage aesthetic of a 1970s piece. I love the silver sunburst style, the way it catches the light, and the silver baton handset and silver stick indices, also the fluted bezel. All the design elements are there. This does look like a 1970s Seagull piece, and it is a heritage reissue, so they've got it right. Looks like a 1970s piece, but it's modern day specification. We've got AR coating and sapphire crystal. So let's do a Lume test, and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. So this uses C3 Super Lume Nova. Originally in the 1970s, Seagull watches used tritium, and of course tritium was then succeeded in the early 1990s with Lume Nova, and then in the late 1990s and early 2000s, Super Lume Nova succeeded Lume Nova. So this uses green C3, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. We're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers on the dots next to the stick indices, and 5 to 6 layers on the baton handset. Now bear in mind, baton hands are very slender, and also the dots of Lume do not allow for a large area, a large plot, and so the camera is struggling to autofocus. So I'm just going to charge it up again to show you the exciter is performing well. So it is 5 to 6 layers on the baton hands and 5 to 6 layers on the dots, but of course the dots do not allow for a lot of depth or a lot of area, a lot of plot as per indices on a dive piece. Also the baton hands are very slender. They're not the same as snowflake hands or Mercedes hands, which have a greater surface area. Therefore they allow for a larger plot, a larger area of 5 to 6 layers to be applied. So as you can see, the exciter is potent, and there's a perfect colour tone match between the dots of C3 Super Lume Nova and the C3 Super Lume Nova used on the baton hands. But however, due to the proportions of the dots and the proportions of the slender baton hands, it doesn't allow for a large area. But it's performing well. We're clearly looking at 5 to 6 versus 3 to 4 layers. So, and it's also good to see that they haven't used the cost-cutting measure of using Lume Nova at this price point. This is C3 Super Lume Nova. But the camera's struggling to autofocus on it because the baton hands aren't very large in proportions, and also the dots are not the same as applied indices in field with Super Lume Nova, as you can see. But it does perform well. So I think it's good. I like the green tone of it. It does look very similar to tritium, which was used in the 1970s, and this is a heritage reissue but made to modern day specification. So I like it. I think it's good. Right, so let's discuss the movement used, because it's my favourite aspect of the piece. So as I've detailed, this is powered by the Seagull Caliber ST2100 automatic, which is a clone of the ETA 2836-2. The architecture of both movements is the same. The parts are interchangeable. However, the only notable difference is Seagull add an additional 3 joules to their caliber. So, to clarify, the ETA 2836-2 has 25 joules. The architecture of the 2836-2 is based upon the 2824-2, which is very similar. But the difference is the 2836-2 has a day-date complication. The 2824-2 only has a date complication. So many movements have cloned the ETA 2824-2. For example, the PT5000 is a clone, the SW200-1 is a clone, and the Soprod P024 is a clone. But this movement, the ST2100, is a clone of the ETA 2836-2, not the 2824-2, because it has a day-date complication. But the architecture of this movement is similar to the 2824-2 and also the 2836-2. It just has an additional 3 joules added. Pelage finishing to the main plate and the bridges is decorated, which is good. So in terms of finishing, in terms of decoration, it's similar to an Elaboré grade, or alternatively top or chronometer grade SW200-1. This is good. We've got milled stripes on the rotor, which are like Côtes du Genève or Geneva stripes, and they've also signed it with the Seagull emblem and Seagull text logo in gilt. So it's decorated. So to put this into perspective, the finishing is a level above the PT5000, which is made in China by HK Precision Technology. This is a higher grade of movement than the PT5000. In terms of quality, build quality, materials and finishing, it's equal quality to a Sellita SW200-1 or an ETA 2824-2 or an ETA 2836-2, Elaboré or top or chronometer grade. The reason why I say Elaboré or top or chronometer grade is because the standard grade of SW200-1 is not decorated. We don't have pelage finishing on the bridges, and it doesn't have milled stripes on the rotor. The Elaboré grade and also the top and chronometer grades do have pelage finishing, and they do have milled stripes on the rotor. So this is more similar in terms of build quality, finishing. It's the same as an Elaboré or alternatively a top or chronometer grade SW200-1. That's the level of quality, a level above the PT5000. In terms of tolerances, accuracy and finishing and materials, I would say that this is equal to an SW200-1 Elaboré grade. And I like it. Now, it's in-house made by Seagull, and they've been making movements since 1955. 70 years of making watches, 70 years of making calibers. So, build quality, quality control, tolerances are all excellent. As you can see, the finishing is beautiful, pelage finishing is beautiful, and the milled stripes are beautiful. It runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. Has a quickset day-date complication, which, as I've demonstrated, works well. Hand winding and hacking works well. 40-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy is plus or minus 12 seconds per day to plus or minus 30 seconds per day. So exactly the same as the ETA 2836-2 standard grade, which this is a clone of. This one is running consistently at plus 5 seconds per day when it's fully wound to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. So again, to remind you, when the mainspring is fully unwound, when it's exhausted and the movement has stopped dead, 40 full clockwise turns is enough to manually wind this to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. Now, when this one is manually wound to its absolute maximum 40 hours, it's running consistently at plus 5 seconds per day. Plus 5 is well within the stated accuracy of plus or minus 12 to plus or minus 30 seconds per day. Plus 5 is actually chronometer grade accurate. Chronometer is minus 4 to plus 6, so plus 5 is within minus 4 to plus 6. So what you're looking at here is an Elaboré grade or top or chronometer grade finished movements with chronometer grade accuracy of minus 4 to plus 6. Plus 5 is excellent. In terms of reliability, the thing I like about this movement above all else, it's more reliable than the PT5000. So to explain why, the PT5000 has reliability issues. Now, my opinion on the PT5000 made by HK Precision Technology has changed. Originally, I liked the PT5000 because I was very impressed that it attained chronometer certification in Germany at an observatory for chronometer testing. Now, of course, it can't be COSC chronometer certified in Switzerland because COSC only certifies Swiss-made movements. So what HK Precision Technology did was they took a PT5000 to Germany, to the German observatory, and they certify chronometer movements that are made outside of Switzerland. For example, Chinese-made movements can be certified as well as German movements. And the PT5000 attained chronometer certification -4 to +6, and I was very impressed with that. And I really liked the PT5000 at that stage, but then what happened was, subsequently, 2 years after that, I began to see more and more reports of reliability issues with the PT5000, which is a clone of the ETA 2824-2. The main reason why the PT5000 has reliability issues is lack of lubrication. It's inconsistent. HK Precision Technology do not always lubricate the PT5000 correctly, and therefore sometimes they seize up. The rotor seizes, or they seize up when manually winding. So that's actually changed my opinion. I now dislike the PT5000 purely for reliability. Seagull do not have that problem with their calibers such as this ST2100, which is a clone of the ETA 2836-2. They lubricate the movements correctly. So, for example, the manual winding feels smooth, doesn't feel rough or gritty. The rotor does not seize up as per a PT5000. You're not going to get this problem that sometimes collectors report with the PT5000. When they're manually winding it, the rotor spins round like a helicopter, and that's the problem with the rotor seizing. Seagull movements are more reliable. The 2100, because the architecture is the same as the 2824-2 and also the 2836-2, has the same design, the same architecture. The reliability is there, the design is there. In terms of build quality, the materials and finishing are equal to an SW200-1. There's no difference in quality. It's made in China rather than Switzerland, but the reality is the quality of this movement is the same. And the accuracy is excellent. +5 seconds per day, chronometer accurate, 40-hour power reserve. Really, I don't see a difference between the ETA 2836-2 and this movement, other than the 3 joules of this one. The build quality, materials, finishing, quality control, tolerances and accuracy are equal. They are the same, they're interchangeable. Excellent movement. Good to see an in-house movement used at this price point. For example, Seagull could just use the PT5000 to cut production costs. And of course that would maximise profit margin per piece, but they don't. They use their own in-house caliber. They could have made the bridges and the main plate sterile and undecorated, and they could have made the rotor just sterile and undecorated, but they haven't. They've milled stripes like Geneva stripes or Côtes du Genève, and they've also decorated the bridges with pelage finishing. So not only is it a good movement technically, it's also well finished, so it's aesthetically pleasing. And I like it. I like that it's got an exhibition caseback to show it off, because it is one of the best Seagull calibers. This is reliable, it's accurate, and it's durable and robust. Feels good to manually wind, feels good to set the day-date complication, and also feels good to set the time. No negatives to it whatsoever. Reliable, accurate, it's a good, well-proven workhorse Chinese-made caliber. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price points. So, low tier piece, price point is $499, which is €444. So we're at the upper end of the low tier, €0 to €500 price point, €444. I'm going to declare it excellent quality, but I'm going to declare the value as poor, because this does face some stiff competition from other microbands which are making their watches in China. Now, I do appreciate the brand heritage adds value. Seagull are celebrating their 70th anniversary. They've been making watches and movements since 1955. One has to respect the pedigree of the brand. This is one of the high quality Chinese brands. Seagull have heritage. That is something that many low tier Chinese brands lack. For example, San Martin have only been making watches since 2012. They don't have heritage. Seagull have been making watches for 70 years. They do have heritage. That adds credibility. It adds weight to the brand. Now, In-house calibre is also impressive. They're not buying in calibers. For example, they're not using a PT5000, as I've detailed, made by HK Precision Technology. They make their own movements. This is again something that San Martin cannot do. They are not capable of making their own calibers in-house. They buy in movements from Seiko and, of course, PT5000 movements from HK Precision Technology. Seagull do it all themselves. Every part of this watch is made in-house by Seagull. The watch and also the movement itself are in-house. So again, that adds value to the piece. But it's expensive. $499 or €444 is expensive. This does face stiff competition from low-tier brands, and they're also using premium movements such as the Miyota 9015 and 9039 at that price point. So I think the value is poor. Quality is excellent, value is poor. There's only one negative, and it's a minor negative, is one of the bracelet end links articulates freely, which is good, but one of the bracelet end links feels stiff, it kinks. So again, one could be magnanimous about this below €100, but at €444 one cannot. So they need to refine that. But everything else about it is good. It is a nice heritage reissue, and it's faithful to the original. They've got the balance correct because it's updated with sapphire crystal and AR coating and C3 superluminova, but visually it looks like a 1970s piece. So I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Seagull Reissue, reference 816.12.1075. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.